Welcome to this week's edition of the old Paratrooper podcast. But before we get started, I want to tell you about our new sponsors, Veterans for Veterans. If you served after 1987 and your hearing's taken a knock from your time in the forces, these are the people to speak to. They've helped thousands of veterans like us claim compensation for tinnitus and hearing loss. They're ex-military themselves, so they genuinely get it.
It's free to check if you qualify, and the claims are no win, no fee. To get started, click the link in this video or visit veteransforveterans.co.uk.
Well, hello. Now, as promised, I said I would do a little bit of a question and answer. This is a bit of a trial, all right? We're going to do it as a bit of a trial where I'm just going to answer a few of the questions that I've got because I get loads of comments on stuff. Majority of them are positive, but we do get some negative on there as well. So I'm going to address those things as well. But yeah, first few little bits of stuff. Obviously, I do bang on about Veterans for Veterans. They are sponsoring the podcast. Now, I keep going on about it. Now, if you've not done your hearing claim, or there's the non-freezing cold injuries as well that's coming to kind of to the forefront, if you like, where if you've been in a situation, now we'll all remember it, Brecon, Otterburn, Island of Skye, Norway trips. I never did any Norway trips, but you'll kind of, some of you will obviously recall doing those. But your hands and your feet have been horrendously cold. All right. And you know, when you struggle to get the sensation back in your fingers now for me, like I did a bit of window cleaning on the side from when I was a firefighter. I couldn't work through the winter months because my hands used to absolutely kill because of the cold. So I'm more susceptible to the cold now as a result of probably those instances and those times where I've been absolutely freezing cold, wet through, where there's been frost on the ground in the exercise. You know, the military not providing you with the proper Arctic kit and stuff, certainly on certain tours that you went on where it was absolutely freezing and it was below a certain temperature. So yeah, Veterans of Veterans doing all that kind of stuff, non-freezing cold injuries, hearing loss claims, all that kind of stuff. They do a lot to support veterans run organizations. They support me amongst many others. They support charities. So they do all that kind of stuff. The link again for hearing claims is in the bio to this video. So if you've not done it already, if you left the military after 1987, that means as well, if you serve from like 1980 to, I don't know, 1991, you can still claim from 1987 to 1991 for a hearing claim. It's okay. So it's worth putting it in. It's a no win, no fee. Have a go. We send you for a hearing assessment. And if there's hearing damage, then there's a chance there that you may have a claim. So it's worth doing just to see. If you've not done it already, click on the link, have a look and see if you're eligible. It's that simple. So that's the sponsors. Absolutely great organization to be part of. And I'm thankful that they sponsor the podcast. So yeah, that's them. Podcast is going good. You know, the following's growing. The whole idea behind it is to get a big following so we can genuinely start helping people. That was the plan all along. Grow the following, grow the YouTube channel, grow the Instagram channel. So genuinely, if I put out stuff, it reaches lots and lots of people. So if someone needs some help, like financially, like there's a few friends at the minute are going through a bit of tough times due to partners being sick and being diagnosed with cancer and things like that, and they can't work, so they're falling on tough times. So we create pages where everybody, if I've got 100,000 followers and everyone donates £1, we can then donate some of that money to them to help them when they're struggling through the hard times. I think it's a small thing that we can do that will help lots and lots of people. So that was always the bigger plan. I never envisaged is that the correct word? I never envisaged the podcast heading in the direction it's going. It was started off as a hobby just to help people. Again, as I say, because I lost a lot of friends and colleagues over the years through the various different industries, taking their own life. So the idea was to try and do something to make a difference and raise that awareness. So that's what I'm doing. I do it full time now. So it is my soul. I can focus solely on that and kind of build it and genuinely help people. Okay. You may have seen that through Veterans for Veterans. I'm doing some stuff from studios now and stuff like that. So it's taking shape now and it's growing from strength to strength. Got some overseas trips coming up next year, some interesting podcasts coming up surrounding major battles, whether that be in Afghanistan, in Iraq, or maybe Bosnia and stuff like that. Stories that need airing, need telling, okay? Because there's a lot of these conflicts, like the Op Barras podcast, that have fell by the wayside and they've been overshadowed. Not that's a bad thing as such, but obviously Afghanistan was quite significant in recent history, so they've been overshadowed a bit. Okay, so yeah, getting them stories out there is a massive priority of mine and Veterans for Veterans, and making sure that these stories don't get forgotten, and you get to hear about the outstanding acts of bravery carried out by certain individual and teams of individuals within these certain units, not just Power Edge, across the board. All right, so that's the kind of direction I want to head in, and that's where we're going, so stay tuned for that. Now, the questions. I put out a few posts. You may have seen them. Well, obviously some of you have, because you've sent me the questions. I've received quite a lot of questions, and I'm going to answer them. Now, feel free to comment on here, if you think I've got the answer wrong. This is just my interpretation of the question. I will answer it to the best of my ability and best of my memory. This is not to be taken as advice. This is just my sole opinion on some of the questions are personal. Some of them are more of a wider kind of sort of thing, if you like. All right. So I'll start off. I will be answering some of the comments that I get on the videos, some of the negatives ones. Well, I don't get a lot of negative, thankfully. Hopefully, I'm trying to push positive stuff. Try not to get too involved in controversy, into politics. So I'm trying to push positivity. So yeah, I'll address some of the negative comments in a minute. Some of them are quite funny. And I will also address the questions that have been sent. Now, the first one, I've been sent this by numerous people. I'm not going to name people's second name, but it was a guy called Philip, there's a guy called Mark, and there's another guy as well that's asked me the same question. And I think it was a result of the Tommy video that went out around remembrance. Okay. And it was about my berry. Now, the berry's at the back. So the question was about the berry was, how come over the years the cap badge has gone from sitting over the right eye, like so, to ending up right round here with an overhang? And the comments were all about how it looks like a flat cap and everything else. Now, from my interpretation, God, that's getting old now. It's about 25 years old, this berry, look. Still fits my fat head, though. The question was, why is the cap badge sort of, a lot of people wear the cap badge around here. Now, from my knowledge and how it kind of worked out was quite simply, the longer you've been in, you used to have to request to have an overhang to make your berry look in alley. Now, for non-military or non-Power Edge people, alley's a term, I think it dates back, I don't know when it dates back to, but it's basically, alley is a term for looking good, looking cool and looking the part. So people sort of shape their berry. It's called an alley berry. So longer you've been in, a bit of seniority, you're allowed to have an overhang. So the leather band disappears and it pulls down and looks more like a flat cap. Now, it's not for everyone. You'll get a lot of traditionalists out there and go, well, it's meant to be blah, blah, like it was back in Arnhem. That's absolutely fine, sign of the times. But that is the answer to that question. It's a sign within Power Edge of alleyness and kind of almost, I suppose, seniority. Now, I could be getting that wrong, but that's how I remember it. You used to have to request to have an overhang. You used to usually have to do a tour, be in a year, same as getting a reg tattoo. You used to basically prove yourself. Once you prove yourself, get an overhang of your berry, get a Power Edge tat, jobs are good. So that's how it went. So there we go. That's about the berry. I'll put that back on the shelf, ready for remembrance again next year. So that's the berry question. All right. Again, feel free to comment about that if you don't agree or if I've got it wrong. That's how I remember it. Some of the other questions. Now, this is from Neil Punt. He's asked me several questions, so I'll try my best to answer them. So first one, toughest thing you did in the military, was it P Company or toughest operational tours? Now, I make no secret of the fact I found P Company really, really hard. Did it 3 times in about 6 months. Okay, I don't know many other people that have done it. I know Carl Bushby who I've had as a guest on a podcast, who's walking around the world. He's about 28 years in. He did P Company 5 times, I believe. I'm sure he said 5 times. He's the only person that I know that's done it more times than me. I'm sure that, again, feel free to comment if you did it more than once, if you did it twice, 3 times, or if there's anyone out there that can beat 5 times on P Company. But I did it 3 times in 6 months. I found it incredibly hard. I was injury ridden throughout pretty much all 3 of them, but I was pretty much not injury free, but good to go on the final one, hence why I passed. And I did smash the last one, had no dramas. Never came off the log, never came off the stretcher. I was just hanging back due to a groin injury on the first one that wasn't healed enough for the second one. And I thought, right, I can do it. And I couldn't. And I failed again. And then it was at that point I contemplated joining the Green Jackets. I'm not ashamed to say that. Green Jackets are a good unit, but they're not the Paras. So I basically went into the office, slammed my tabs in and said, right, I want to transfer. And this is when I saw a bit of a human side to the depot staff. There's a guy called Jay Stewart, who's went on to become a helicopter pilot, I believe. Again, people will remember a big, tall lad, lovely bloke. He pulled me in the office and he basically said, if you don't go through with it, you're so close to passing. You're a good soldier. Just need that final little push over the edge kind of thing. And it was his words and his encouragement that basically made me go and do it for a 3rd time. And I passed and then went on to spend 7 years with the Parachute Regiment. Probably one of the best parts of my life, certainly shaped me as the individual I am today. So yeah, P Company was hard. However, what I probably found the hardest throughout training was the exercise that comes after P Company. So you have a weekend off, if I'm not mistaken, you go on leave, you get your berry, you go on leave for a weekend, and then you come back and you start prepping for an exercise. Back in my day, it was called Dynamite Mole. I believe it was called Advanced Brecken. Again, that might be wrong, but I'm sure it's called different. I think it's been called Mole Mania. But I went through it in depot back in the late 90s, 97, 98, and it was called Dynamite Mole. Sent out into a training area. I believe we did it on Otterburn. Given a patch of ground. So you do various sort of build up to it, blank firing attacks and stuff like that, all your tactics kind of stuff, honing your skills as a paratrooper. And then you do this sort of almost like a final exercise, if you like, called Dynamite Mole. Patch of ground, team of section of you, if I believe, or it might be 4, it might be a fire team of you, 4 or 5 people. And then you given a patch of ground and you dig in. You dig into the height of the tallest man. Okay. Now, me being 6'2", probably the tallest in the team, we had to dig the trench to the height of 6'2". Now that seems easy, but you're not allowed to sleep. You don't rest until you've dug it and completed your trench. Now, the people that were on my Dynamite Mole will remember it rained from the day we started to the day we finished. Okay, soaking wet through, no sleep. I think it took us about 5 days. Now, after 2 or 3 days of literally, and I mean the odd cat nap on the side of the trench stood up, you start to hallucinate. Okay, I remember seeing cows in the next field and thinking they were tanks. That's a true story. I remember everyone walking around at night time, a small dip in the trench that we were digging, and it looked like the Grand Canyon, and everyone was trying to shimmy around it because they were kind of thought it was bigger than what it was. It was just horrendous. Horrendous. That is the hardest thing I did in the military by far. Okay, mentally, physically, dealing with the elements, trying to stay switched on. We lost a guy. I not mention his name. He went on to be part of Pathfinders, but we lost a guy, ended up falling in a stream. We had to go and search for him in the middle of the night. It was just horrendous weather and conditions. So that for me was the hardest part of training. Toughest operational tours. Now the island tours were tough because they were winter tours. You know, you were cold. It was frosty. You were out on patrol. Probably the best op I went on would have been Sierra Leone. Not because it was engaging with the enemy, but there was a real risk. It was felt like a real op as a young 20-year-old kind of paratrooper. You know, I went from being on the piss in Tenerife to being called back 48 hours later. I'm patrolling around Freetown with a stop off in Dakar as we went. 40-degree heat with a hangover from hell. I've talked about that before on podcasts. But so, yeah, that was probably the best tour. In and out, about just shy of a month, real threat, real patrolling, real enemy. And again, probably one of my short career, 7 years. Like I say, I don't claim it was anything massive, but 7 years. And I believe that, oh, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I can edit that back out. So I've been brought up brew by my PA. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, babe.
That's all right. I'll edit it out. I won't edit it out. So yeah, for me, that was probably the best op I went on, just because I really felt like we did stuff to help people. You know, I believe that we pushed the West Side Boys rebels back. They were horrendous. They were coming in, chopping up people, chopping up people's hands, chopping up people's arms, kids. They were all sorts of stuff. What they were doing was absolutely sickening and atrocious. So we went in and we pushed them back. And then as a result of Op Barras and that, it finally put an end to the West Side Boys. And as a result now, as you've probably seen with Ian Getty's documentary that's out on Veterans for Veterans, go check them out on YouTube. He went back and it's now as stable as it can be country where, you know, he went for a pint of Guinness. You know, it's a kind of stable country now as a result of the actions back in 2000. So, yeah, I think that's probably my proudest kind of operation that I went in. I did 6 operational tours in the time I was in. I'm completely honest about I'm not being overly kinetic. Again, that one for me was kind of like almost the crowning moment throughout my military career. I'm very, very proud of Sierra Leone and what we achieved out there. So, yeah, that's that one. Funniest thing I saw in the army is another question, Neil Scott. Well, there's probably quite a lot of stuff in here that I can't mention. It was chaos. We moved from Aldershot. I spent 18 months at Aldershot, and then we moved to... Now, Aldershot's the home of British Airborne. It was for many, many years. I have fond memories of Aldershot, but at the same time, it was, you know, a little bit... There weren't many bars, you know, there certainly weren't many females. And as a young teenager, you know, kind of going out on the lash was you were looking for the opposite sex. You know, that's just part and parcel of growing up. So when we moved to Colchester, it was like, it was like I don't know, a bright light of excitement because it was just surrounded. It was a young, busy town. It was a university town, and it had a lot of bars and pubs. So we went there and it was just outstanding. Many, many, many laughs out and about on the lash. I can't narrow it down to the funniest thing I saw in the army. And I can't probably talk about a lot of the stuff because I'd get my channel cancelled. So, but yeah, but many, many fond memories, good times, many tough times, but good. Yeah, good times. What made me leave the military is the next question. Don't know. I'm a big believer in, quite simply, if you're not happy and you feel like a change, then you do something about it. And everyone thought I was insane. After it's took me such a long time to get in doing 3P companies that I decided that after 7 years I was going to leave. And it was a few reasons. I just got a little bit disillusioned. I just got bored. There was nothing on the horizon. Iraq was just boiling, brimming 2003. And it looked like we were going to be sent. But I also got wind of the mercenary circuit or the close protection circuit. That would be controversial. It's not a mercenary. Close protection industry through friends that I knew. There was a couple of lads that I knew had gone out and started it as the Iraq war finished. So I was a bit like, I fancy a bit of that. So money was good. It was kind of a military setup. You know, you are doing military stuff. 1 second, just got to check my settings here, make sure. Yeah, so you were doing military stuff. I forgot where I'm at now. Where was I at? So yeah, it was military setup. So you were doing military stuff. You had weapons, but you were treated a bit better. Money was good. And it was exciting. I was like, oh, you know, I never wanted to be a one-trick pony, as it were. I wanted different experiences throughout my life and career. So I decided, I'm going to go and do the mercenary work. So I went out to Iraq. That was my main driving force for leaving the military at 24 years of age and going out and kind of doing the mercenary work. And I'm not going to lie, it was an eye-opener. I didn't settle too quick. Yeah, first company I worked with. Now, you got to remember, I was a little bit hot-headed. I had a little bit of a temper when I was younger. It's still in there, but I'm fairly mellow now. I've not lost my temper at anyone or anything in a long, long time. You mellow as you get older. But back then, I was quite hot-headed. Went out with the first company. I've talked about this extensively, so I'll just graze over it. But I ended up getting in an altercation with a former Australian SAS soldier. We had a set to. I punched him several times and resulted in me. I didn't technically get sacked. I resigned, but they would have sacked me. There's no question. Still think it was the right thing to do. Perhaps not assaulting him, but the guy was a bully, not a very nice person. So yeah, that was my first. I was out there about a week, so it didn't go overly as planned. So then I was a bit stuck. I was like, oh, is any other companies going to take me on? And then a guy called Barney, he's on Facebook, ex Pathfinder, set up a company, and we're after guys to go out. So I end up getting sent out there and going over to a company called Blue Hackle, where I worked for about 2 years, various different contracts, responsible for setting up kind of training local nationals and all that kind of stuff. So that was the main reason for leaving. Do you ever regret leaving? Yes and no. I don't regret it as such as that I've gone on to do lots of different things and have lots of different experiences in different lots of careers. However, now I know this is going to get some criticism, and people that know me go, but looking back now, I wish I'd have probably stayed in a few more years. The ages I was in, 17 to 24, I was interested in going on a piss, and up women, getting in fights and having a laugh. I didn't really take the whole paratrooper thing seriously because of the period of time I was in. If I was in and stayed in up until my mid to late 20s, I think I'd have matured, I'd have gone on more career courses, and I'd like to have gone on selection. Biggest regret is not going on SF selection. Whether I'd have passed or not is a different matter. I'll never know because I never did it, never claimed to have done it, but I wish I would have had a go. So that's my biggest regret. So yeah, working in Civvy Street, did you adjust okay? I've never really adjusted to Civvy Street, to be completely honest. I don't know whether that's just my brain or whether that is just a thing that you've been in the military. Some people do. I'd never found civilian jobs, so to speak. Now, this is no criticism of civilian jobs, like people that go on to become electricians. There's a lot of money to be had in the trade industry, building, bricklayer, electrician, plumber. It just wasn't for me. They don't stimulate me enough. I always wanted professions that were quite exciting, challenging, dangerous, if you like, which I later found on is to do with like how my brain works. And I have a low dopamine, so I seek out things that almost thrill seeking, if you like, almost that give me that dopamine hit. And that's probably explains why I've chosen the careers that I've chose over the years. So I have tried civilian jobs. I mean, I worked for my cousin for quite a few months, I think about a year, in between working in Iraq at different stages, doing groundworks. But I never really settled. I tried being a prison officer, lasted 12 weeks. So there's lots of failures, you know, on road to on the route to where I'm at now. And I never really adjusted. This now what I'm doing is, I suppose, a civilian job. I work with veterans and I work with civilians, but I find this now what I'm doing probably the most rewarding thing I've done. That's probably the truth. You know, alongside the fire service and the military, they're all up there because I really enjoyed it. I joined the fire service to help people. You go and help people at the worst day, worst hour of their lives, and you save life. You cut people out of RTCs. You rescue people from house fires. You generally do good. So you know that side of it, I have enjoyed them careers. Now I'm quite, you know, I've been quite vocal about the fire service. And I don't want to cast any kind of aspersions, or what's the correct word, about people thinking of joining the fire service. It's an outstanding career. I had 12 years and I loved every minute of it. I did. I loved it. But I got a little bit disillusioned with the direction of the fire service towards the end. It's created a little bit more like a business. And it feels like the needs of the public are kind of an afterthought now compared to what they was when I joined. There'll be a lot of firefighters that are watching this are probably relating to that. And, you know, there aren't the jobs anymore. Being a firefighter is a bit of a weird one because you want to go into house fires. You genuinely do. You want to go into house fires because it's an exciting buzz. It's the closest thing I can relate to being in a contact situation. Now, I've not been in millions of contacts. I've been in a few while over in Iraq, been in a few IEDs, RKG3 attacks, mortars and stuff like that. But that's the closest buzz being in a house fire to kind of that sort of thing. So you want to go out and you do it. When them pips go down, it's house fire. Everyone switches on. When it's a person's reported house fire, everybody switches on. You go up a level. Everyone moves faster, quicker, switches on. It's like the next level. Okay. So yeah, you go out and you help people, you do stuff. But the podcast for me, as I genuinely think I'm trying to get the messages out there, I'm trying to stop people from taking their own life. I'm trying to help people and just bring a bit of awareness to the mental health situation, and generally help create a bigger thing for when veterans leave the military. They're not isolated, they're not on their own, and they can seek help where they've got one place to go instead of millions of different avenues. It's like a minefield when you leave the military, trying to find where to go and get help. Whereas we're trying to set up, or we want to set up in the future, where we are literally, you know exactly where to go. You are signposted, right? That's what I need. I need that. Right, I go there. Right, they'll direct me to that. So it becomes a simple process, and we look after our veterans. Again, you will get criticism saying, well, you signed up, you joined it, you knew what you was getting into. Yes, we did. Absolutely. However, with the nature of the job, we did expect a little bit more support, certainly from the government and the MOD after we'd leave. Okay. It's not like leaving a normal job. You've done stuff, you've seen stuff, you need a bit of support after. And unfortunately, the powers that be aren't doing enough. So I'm doing my bit with trying to help that and kind of help that process. So I suppose that leads me on now to how did the podcast start? Quite simply, like I said, it started off as a hobby, wanted to help people, and kind of raise awareness for mental health, get rid of that stigma, get the SES veterans on, get your veterans on from the military and emergency services workers, and get them talking about their experiences to say, look, it's not a stigma. It's actually stronger if you come out and you talk about it, because everyone thinks it's a sign of weakness. So to actually, and it's not, to actually stand up and say, look, I'm struggling, I need help, is possible, is a big thing. And if we portray it and we show it that these veterans and SES soldiers and firefighters, police officers are coming forward and sitting there and explaining their experiences, hopefully it will give the wider public a kind of not an insight, what's the word I'm looking for? Hopefully it will think, well, if they can do it, I can do it too, and talk and seek and get help. And hopefully we can bring down that number of people taking their own lives. That was always the biggest plan. Create a platform where we can genuinely help people. That's what I'm all about. That's what I want to do. And I thoroughly enjoy it. I get to talk to really interesting people. The networking side of it is unbelievable. I get to network with all sorts of people. I've just got off the phone with a US Special Forces guy 2 minutes ago, who lives over in Florida. What an interesting guy. He's a stuntman. I'll come on to that. I'm going to have him on the podcast in the future. Yeah, interesting individuals. I get to talk to them. And my job is to interview them and go out filming on different locations and interviewing people. It is fantastic. I love it, and it's genuinely helping people. Is it easy to get guests on? Now, I've been very lucky through my networking and people that I know. And as the podcast's grown, I've been able to reach out. Some of them have been luck. It's not always easy. I spend quite a long time chasing up certain individuals, trying to get them on the podcast. I nearly have stalking orders put out against me for actually chasing people that much. But it's not been overly difficult. Some have proved harder than others. You get some people that don't want to do podcasts or don't, or they'll only pick podcasts. You get a lot of questions of people that come on and go, well, what's your following like? And they won't come on unless you've got subscribers or more. So as I say, the idea is to grow the platform. The more subscribers and followers I have on Instagram, on YouTube and stuff like that, the more it will lure in the guests, and I can chat to them and we can get their stories out there and the bigger picture to help more and more people, if that makes sense. Okay, so not always that easy to get guests on. Well, that was 5 questions from, in a roundabout fashion, Neil, who did 9 years in the Royal Engineers, and he was 18 years with Avon Fire and Rescue. And as he said as well, 18 years, amazing watch, amazing job, unfortunately run by clowns. Yep, I know where you're coming from. So this next question is from a guy called Chris. Again, I won't mention second names. well, yeah, I suppose he won't mind. Chris Stott is his name, actually. I suppose he doesn't mind. He's asked me the question. My question is, fellow veteran, do you feel the army should be a standalone organisation and not have to reflect the way society has changed? I feel that almost obsession these days with the top brass to bring the army into line with what is acceptable in society is a hindrance rather than a positive. Now, I have been a little bit vocal on this. Now, my argument with this, I get it with certain organisations, the military, you've got to reflect the community. You do have to reflect the community to a certain extent. That shouldn't be at the sacrifice of standards. Okay. Now, certain organisations that I work for are trying their best to push almost like an agenda to get people in from different ethnic minorities, get people in from different sexes and stuff like that, which is absolutely fine. You know, everyone is welcome into these organizations, but you've got to meet the standard. It's not a game, you know. You can't turn up on a fire ground, you know, and an incident ground at a house fire with people that don't know what they're doing or they can't lift the equipment. We have standards, we have tests. There's a process to get into these organizations for a reason, because if they're not up to standard, it will cost lives of the public and other firefighters. I'm quite vocal about that. I think the public want people, if they're sadly or tragically their house ends up on fire, they want people to turn up on a fire engine that basically are capable of doing the job. That's what you want. That's what you pay your council tax for. That's what you want. I don't feel like anyone will ever stick their head out of a window of the house that's on fire and go, oh, I don't feel like that fire engine's representing the kind of true diverseness of the community. You just want 5 people on that fire truck that can do what they do, regardless of their colour, sex, religion, or whatever. I think that's a fair statement. That's the same with the military. You know, I'm sure the military, I've heard stories of the military trying to fit agendas and stuff. No one really cares. No one genuinely doesn't care about it. The media make a big song and dance to this. Everyone I've ever spoke to could not give a shit as long as you are capable of doing what you do. It doesn't matter about your background, your religion, your sex. It does not matter. You've just got to be capable of doing that job. It's an important job. Where lives are at risk. So yeah, I do feel like we are trying to push stuff and reflect normal life within these organizations. And I get it. There are avenues within the military where that would suit and be more kind of be okay. But at the same time, I think that you've got to look at it. It's about standards. If we start dropping standards to fit in with what's acceptable in society and to fit in with society, it is going to cause dramas. Hopefully I've worded that all right, and hopefully you know where I'm coming from. Like I say, these organizations, the military, the fire service, the police, everyone is welcome. However, you've got to meet the standard. You can't be lowering standards. It's going to cost lives. And I think that's just common sense. Maybe that's what we're lacking, a bit of common sense. So hopefully that's best explains that one. I can't always articulate what's going off in here to come out here, but hopefully you get the picture. I've had one from a guy I met down on a Spy Q convention that I got invited on. Did a little bit of a speech down there. Some really, really interesting guests. Great for networking. It was called Spy Q. It was down in Dorchester, run by a lad called Gavin Stone, who is an ex-spy. So yeah, that was good. And I met Jonam down there. And his question is, what do you think of the unrest in the UK, specifically the path forward that patriotic Brits can take who want to see change and preserve the country for our kids and grandkids, but don't know where to start? Seems like the UK itself will be a hostile arena before long, only a matter of time. Personally, I'm trying to figure out how best to set me and my family up. Part wants to jump ship for their sakes, but a big part of me wants to stay and fight for the country I love. Now, that's a brilliant question, Jonah. And it is uncertain times. We've seen it. And I have banged on about this quite a few times now. I believe there is issues within this country, but I also think they're massively magnified by the media. They love to divide us. They absolutely love to divide us. I don't see it on a day-to-day basis walking around. You know, maybe I'm sheltered, I live out in a village, but when I go out into the big cities, I don't see a big divide. I see people from all cultures, everything mixing. But I believe there is a problem. You know, there is some issues going off. And it feels like the government are trying to divide us a little bit by almost false propaganda in the media. So I don't know. I always say I feel like the country, like when I was growing up. Now there'll be people who can relate to me here that grew up in the 90s and before that, way before CCTV, way before the internet. Okay, used to go into town and there were fights left, right, and centre. Okay, I've been out into Nottingham over the past sort of, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, several times on works dues, on piss ups and stuff like that. I've never seen one fight while I've been out. Never felt threatened. Never seen any sort of, seen tensions rise a bit. But people are aware that there's CCTV everywhere. So I don't feel like it's a violent place that we live in now. If anything, and again, this will be controversial, I feel like it's portrayed scaremongering across social media everywhere, that you go into there, you're going to get stabbed, you're going to get into a fight, someone's going to shoot you. But reality is that the case? I feel like because of the CCTV, because everyone's got a camera phone, people are reluctant to get into fights now. People don't go out getting in violence and stuff like they used to. That's just my opinion. It's how I kind of see it. Could be completely wrong. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff. It's difficult to know what's right and what's not with the media at the minute. And especially with AI, don't even get me onto AI. Obviously, I'm on social media. I'm quite active on social media. I have to be with a podcast. But with AI stuff, it's difficult to know what's real and what's not. All I'll say is trust your own eyes. Don't believe everything you see on a screen. Get more information now from individual podcasts because they're not corrupted. What I tell you is what I feel. And that's kind of like a bit more of a true reflection where we know a lot of these media outlets, we know who they are. They will literally kind of create a narrative that fits. So yeah, it's a difficult one. With the current government that's in power, feels like the working man, anyone that's trying to make better themselves. And I don't mean people that are loaded. I mean people that have got maybe 1 or 2 rentals, or the people that are trying to set up their own businesses just to better themselves. They are getting hammered by the government. It's like they don't want to see the little man succeed, the little person succeed. They just want you to fail, and you're taxed. So it's from that aspect for me. I think in the future, I probably will end up living in a different country, retiring to mainly because of the cold, because my hands are knackered, non-freezing cold injury. My hands and my bones ache because of this and that. And it's just a damp, miserable country. So mine for me is for the climate more than anything. I want to go to warmer climates as I age so I don't ache as much. And like I say, the government, they're not really treating us fair, are they? Let's be honest. Seems like they're constantly trying to tax you. You know, like I said before, there might be oxygen tax soon. I think Pat Smith, comedian, said that. He says, "Oh yeah, oxygen tax." But you wouldn't put it past them. Remember when he said about electric cars, tax-free? You know, you'll go, it's all about the environment, and then all of a sudden you buy an electric car, and the next thing you know, you're having to pay 3 pence per mile, and you're getting taxed on it. So they'll always tax you. Let's be honest. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's becoming a dangerous place as such, but certainly the political side is something I not really agree with or align with as I'm getting older. So again, hopefully that makes sense in a roundabout fashion. Right, so got 2 more questions on here, and then we'll switch on to the comments. I've got loads more questions, but I'm aware I'm trying to keep this under an hour. So this is from Pete. He is actually a relation. He's my dad's cousin. And Pete says, at a point in combat or a target in your gun sights, how do you keep that composure when you pull the triggers at feeling, or does the thoughts of soldier lost in combat crop up and you pull the trigger in revenge for fallen comrades and seeing the target fall, or the thoughts, elation, pride, or a tinge of sadness for that person on the floor? Now, I'm quite open about the fact that I've never shot anyone, I've never killed anyone. However, while doing the piracy, I was, along with a lot of people, in positions where I'd have been justified to use lethal force. Identified pirates, seen weapons, weapons pointing in our general direction. That's a threat. You were, at the time, I believe, under the rules of engagement that were set, the maritime rules of engagement, you were perfect within your rights to use lethal force. Now, I've been in that position. And for me, I chose not to use lethal force. I fired warning shots, tried to shoot at engine blocks of boats. I don't want to live with the death of another person, if I can help it, on my conscience. So I feel like that is a general. I have not met anyone in the military that want to go out there and close in and kill the enemy out of vindictive or for the sake of the fact that fallen comrades or stuff like that. People go out there, they generally try and avoid that at all costs. They go out there, if it happens, they do what they have to. So I don't think it comes from a place of revenge or for fallen comrades. It's just part and parcel of the job. And I think you'll find most will avoid it if they don't have to, because you have to live with that. You know, at the time, it probably wouldn't register, but then later on down life, those are the sort of things that keep you awake at night, that you lie awake thinking about, thinking, God, I've taken someone's home. I can only assume, never been in that position where I've had to, but speaking to a lot of people, it plays on their mind. Now, if you don't have to do that, why would you do that? So I can't speak for everyone, but certainly conversations I've had with other veterans, that's their general consensus, is that if they didn't have to, they wouldn't, and they'd try at all costs not to. But if someone's trying to close in and kill you with a weapon, that's unfortunately part and parcel of the job. Now, I'm not saying the pirates in my circumstances would have been quite so lenient. I'm under no illusion that if they ever boarded a vessel and got hold of one of the security advisors on board, they would have executed him, probably threw him overboard or tortured him or whatever. But that's their agenda. That's a reflection on their character, not mine. And most people I've met think the same. So hopefully that answers that one, Pete. This one's from Caden. Bit of a strange one, actually. It says, what's it like being a Christian in the parachute regiment? Now, I am christened. I'm christened a Christian. However, I class myself as an atheist. I don't necessarily believe. I have no malice or kind of, if you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, that is your right to worship whatever God you feel you want to, what you've grown up with in your culture. That's absolutely fine. I don't criticize. But for me, I don't believe it. It's not my thing. So even though I was christened, I'm not a practicing Christian. I class myself as an atheist. I don't believe there is necessarily a God as such. I believe there's something after we die, but I don't know what. Again, that's just my personal view. I'd probably class myself as an atheist, but I know that the military is predominantly Christian. We do have reverends and priests from the Catholic Church that go round. Usually they're barking mad. Everyone will remember the Padres. They tend to be a little bit nuts. They're loud and quite characters. They are, majority of them are characters in themselves. But yeah, being a Christian in the parachute regiment is absolutely fine. You know, I've served with Muslim paratroopers. I've served with Buddhist paratroopers. It practiced and it's respected. And again, I think generally people don't really care. It all boils down to whether you're a bit of a cock or not. If you're a bit of an arse, people won't like you. But if you've got your own views and your own religion and you practice that stuff, people generally are accepting of that. And I think that's across the board. My motto has always been, I don't give a shit who you are, what you are, as long as you're not a dickhead. And I think that's a good lesson to live by. And most people I've met live by that rule as well. So, yeah, there we go. How does everyone treat each other in the parachute regiment? Is there bullying? Of course there's bullying. Like, you're trying to do away with bullying. There's bullying in all walks of life, rightly or wrongly. It's not acceptable. But I think every person throughout their life has encountered some form of bullying. I certainly have, as I was growing up as a teen, early teens, before I realised I had quite a good right hand. So yeah, and I think it's part of, it's part of growing up. I'm not saying it's acceptable at all, because it's not. If I ever found out my kids were being bullied or anything else, I wouldn't be happy about it. So you'll never quash it. It will always be there in some shape or form, and it is there in the parachute regiment. But it's how you deal with it. It's how the character you deal with it. Like every bully, you stand up. I hate bullies. I absolutely despise bullies. I've got no time for bullies. I've never been a bully. I have banter. I give people shit and they give me shit. That's part and parcel. But if I never feel like I've pushed it too far, and if I have, I'm genuinely gutted, and I will apologize to that person. But there is bullying that goes off, like in every organization. You can't escape it. I feel like it's probably better now than it's ever been with that side of thing, because the way the world is, probably less of it now in the parachute regiment. But how does everyone treat everyone? With a dark sense of humor. Everyone gets the piss ripped out of them. Whether you take that as bullying, that's down to you. But everyone gets a bit of a hard time and a rough time through banter. You do something wrong, you'll get hammered for it. You do something good, you get hammered for it. But it usually comes from a good place. And it's difficult for non-serving members or veterans or people, non-veterans, or people that have not been in organizations like that to grasp it and get the head round, because it is like, it's just part and parcel. You take the piss out of each other, and it's how you cope, even down to people missing limbs and stuff like that. They get piss ripped out of them, they give it back. It's all part of it. It's all taken with love, and it will seem weird to civilians to understand that, but it kind of works, and it's been that way for hundreds of years. And that works in those organizations because of what you deal with. So hopefully that answers that question. So there is some form of bullying. I think it probably will be a lot less now than it was in my day. There'll be people that are serving now that have just joined that will be able to answer that question. Please comment below, and let me know if there is that sort of thing that still goes on, because I've been out 22 years now. I've been out. So, I mean, it was a very, very different time. The world was a different place in the 90s. Sorry, 1 second. So, yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Now, I'm going to come on to the comments. I have had multiple comments, some of them very, very flattering on the podcast. I've had some saying, love the podcast. I've had people saying it's one of the best military podcasts out there, which, again, all these sort of things amazes me that I started this little podcast and now it's grown to a point where people tune in every week and they watch it. I'll always be thankful for the comments, the following, the support, the sharing, all that kind of stuff. Without you guys, the followers, the viewers, and the people that share it for me and give me support, there wouldn't be a podcast. So again, I massively appreciate all the positive stuff. Now, I do get some negative. I get way more positive than I do negative. It's because what you see is what you get with me. I'm not political. I don't go on there to cause harm, or I'm not putting stuff out there to cause debate as such. A debate's good, but I generally push positive stuff. That's what I want to do. There's a lot of negativity all over the place, and I don't want to get involved with it. I used to type out comments to some of the nastier comments and be a bit like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then what the fuck am I doing? Why do I care? And then I delete it. Because quite simply, I don't need to comment. These people don't know me. The people that know me, my close friends, my family, know what sort of person I am. I don't have to take a comment of someone that doesn't know me. They've seen an hour snippet of me and they've cast their opinion. Now, that's their problem. Couple of ones that stand out was one. It was the Bob Shepherd podcast. I had a lot of positive stuff on the Bob Shepherd podcast. Absolutely. Comments, absolutely brilliant. One of the best podcasts we've seen. You get the best out of the guest. You let them talk. You don't butt in. I feel like that's a fairly simple thing, but there are a lot of podcast hosts that just want to talk about themselves. And that's why I do these things. This is my opportunity to talk about me and the podcast and everything else. Or you go on a podcast to talk about your life and career. You don't need the host butting in and talking about himself. That happens quite a lot. For me, it's quite simple. I let them tell the story. If there's a blank or there's a bit of a pause, then I will ask a question. I might be able to reflect something from my experiences to be able to relate to theirs. But genuinely, I let them talk and I let them tell their story. That's what I'm doing. That's the platform for them to do that. So, but yeah, I had lots and lots of positive. And then out the blue, I got one comment that said, and I always show empathy. I find these stories, I'm usually sat there in amazement at these people, these guests' careers. This comment out of the blue was, show some empathy sat there with your tattoos and your whitened teeth. that was the comment out of the blue. And I was like, whoa, where did that one come from? Well, yes, the tattoo part, I am covering quite a few tattoos. I do like tattoos. There are more to come. However, I've never had my teeth whitened. Never. Naturally blessed to have good teeth. I've never whitened them in my last, the truth. Now, I'm not going to say that the beard hasn't maybe seen a little bit of Just for Men. Might have done, because some of the older videos, you'll wonder why this bit's great. It's not some miraculous me aging backwards. I have used a bit of Just for Men. Don't know if it's that obvious or not, but you know now, it's no longer a secret. I'm not bothered. I use it. So what? If you don't like it, tough shit. Yeah, I did this one just come out of the blue. It seemed like a personal attack. But what I have found, again, with the negative comments, TikTok tends to be the really, really bad one for negative stuff, where people jump up and they just, they usually got no profile picture, very low numbers of followers. So they've probably got multiple accounts and they just come on to literally troll. That's what I've tended to find. But like I say, I used to get a little bit annoyed, type out a comment and be like, oh, F you, you know, blah, blah. Now I shower them with love. I had someone come on the other day with a comment and he basically said, I hate paras, they're all cocks. I was like, oh, and I thought like some sort of, what can I send back? I was stewing on it. And then I thought, oh, you know what? I'll shower him with love. And I put, thank you for the compliment. Glad you like the podcast. Wow, this just infuriated him. It were like, oh, you're all cocks. I've met loads. You don't scare me. You never did. You don't scare me now. And I just end up putting back, thank you very much for your positivity. I love you too. And funnily enough, that shut him down. Never commented again. So I've started showering the negative comments with love. There's a lot of love in here to give. So I've started showering the negative comments with love and stuff like that. But yeah. So that's it, guys. About 51 minutes there. Hopefully you found what I've got to say interesting. I will be doing one of these once a month where I answer your questions because I can't keep up with the comments. So I try and, if I pick a particular comment out or a particular kind of question that you want to send me, I will sit down once a month and do like an hour long, roughly, where I will answer them questions, rightly or wrongly. I'm not trying to cause debate, not trying to cause offence. I'm just trying to be as honest as possible and answer some of the questions that I get moving forward. There is one of them one I got as well the other day. Now, people must think I don't speak to the guests before they come on. I have lengthy conversations with the guests. I asked them to send me a little bit of a bio. I don't learn too much about them because I don't want to jump ahead when I'm doing the interview. However, I did have a comment, and this is nice that one of the guests, Dunk, jumped in there and commented underneath. And the bloke, basically, the comment was, I can't believe that you've had a guest on that spent most of his career post 9/11 and you never talk about 9/11 once. Okay. Now, I am aware that 9/11 changed a lot for a lot of soldiers. I was in Macedonia and I watched it on television when that happened. And we knew as soldiers that we would be going to a faraway land to do something as a result of that. I think most soldiers that were serving at that time knew, or it was going to change the landscape of certain stuff. And it did. But I'd already spoke to Dunk before and we talked about what we was going to cover. We decided to shy away from the 9/11 talk because lots of people have different opinions on it and how, you know, different political views and stuff like that. So we left that part out. So he jumped in and said, no, we'd spoke about stuff beforehand, blah, blah, blah. And I obviously shut the comment down. But you will get people, and I don't get it. Because I had other guys as well comment, and they spend ages commenting and going, oh, I hate paras and that. But you hear commenting on the old Paratrooper podcast, and me, a former Paratrooper, doing a podcast. Have you got nothing better to do? Because I don't scroll through posts thinking I'm going to comment on that because it's pissed me off. I just scroll on by. I try not to scroll as much that anyway because I find a lot of negative stuff on social media. And what I'm trying to do is put positive stuff out there. There's not enough positive stuff out there. A lot of AI shit out there, to be honest. But anyway, that's me. Hope you enjoyed the little bit of a Q&A. And I've answered some of the questions that have been sent. If I've missed any, don't worry. I will be answering the rest of the questions when I do another one of these. This is just a bit of a trial to see how it goes down. If you like what I'm doing, you like it. It was brought to me by one of the editors in the team, Cam. said, you know, there's a few podcasters that do this. I thought I'd give it a try. Might get negative feedback and go, you boring old twat. We're not bothered. And if it does, then that's that. But I thought I'd give it a go. Hopefully I've answered some of your questions, a bit more of an insight about engagement with the people that comment, just to let you know that I do read a lot of the comments. I do take on board the positive stuff that you say, and it does make it all worthwhile while I do the podcast. So hopefully that explains why I'm going to be doing these from time to time, if it's successful. And even if it's not, I'll still do it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. Don't watch it. But there we go. Lots of positive stuff moving forward. Will be a podcast out on Sunday. I'm unsure yet as to which one it will be. I've got a bank of podcasts I need to put out and sort and edit. But yeah, as for veterans, as I say, airing claims, non-freezing cold injury claims, go through Veterans for Veterans. There's a link in this video at the bottom. Have a look at it. And yeah, see if you're eligible. Can't hurt to try. But for now, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the weekend. You take care.